Hi, everybody. This is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. Joining us on the podcast today is a true rising star within Fox & Roach. Her name is Britny Keyes, and she is from our Southampton office. And our topic today is going to be thriving against the odds. And what I mean by thriving against the odds is in an industry where a staggering 87% of agents fail out of real estate within the first 5 years, Britny not only defied those odds and thrived in her business, but thrived while starting her career at the very start of a pandemic. So today, we'll discuss Britny's intro into real estate at the onset of COVID, the mindset that enabled her to persevere early in her career, and the ways her background in marketing and sales were a natural transition into residential real estate. Lastly, we'll talk about how Britny markets herself to gain business and what her thoughts are on the potential changes and opportunities that are coming shortly to our industry. So let's dive right into thriving against the odds with Britny Keyes, and we'll pick it up on the other side. I am very excited to have agent extraordinaire Britny Keyes from our Southampton office joining us today. Britny, first, how are you, number one? And second, did you burn your retinas staring straight into the eclipse on me?
I did, actually. I had like 3 pairs of sunglasses on because we weren't able to get like the cool ones. But yeah, how about you?
Well, I almost stared directly into the sun. I had to fight every urge in my body to tell myself that it was a bad idea to do that. So I'm happy to say that I do have my eyesight intact right now. I didn't have glasses, so I kind of had to like stare at just the weird lighting that was going on.
Yeah, it was a little anticlimactic. So
yeah, it kind of was. It was like, what, 4 minutes? So
yeah,
that's okay. All right. So speaking of kind of natural phenomenon, I guess, starting out 4 years ago, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And you decide that it would be a really good idea to start a real estate career. So, so my first question to you, did you start right before the pandemic or right after the pandemic?
Right after the pandemic. So I was in a sales job, and right when the pandemic hit, I got laid off and I was looking for my next career move. No one was hiring. I actually was in the middle of going to another job. I was supposed to move out to Pittsburgh, actually. I was about to accept that. Pandemic happened and they pulled their offer because no one was hiring anymore. So I was kind of like, what should I do? And my mom was always in my ear, like, you should be a realtor. And I was like, no, like, I just didn't think it was for me at the time. And my dad is in construction and I've always loved that aspect of things. So he was like, there's nothing else to do. Like, let's get our license together. So we pursued that and I ended up sticking with it. And unfortunately, my dad didn't. But I think it was great that he pushed me in that direction because I'm absolutely obsessed with what I do now.
You know, we always talk about this on the podcast. Very rarely does someone seek or seek out to be a realtor. That's not usually the first gig that they've had, right? So let's talk a little bit about your background because it's kind of interesting. You do have a marketing background and you have a sales background. So let's touch base about that. And also I want to talk about the learning curve when it comes to starting real estate during a pandemic, right? So let's touch upon your background first and your marketing and sales background.
Yeah. So I went to Bloomsbury University, and while I was there, I had a marketing degree, but I really became close with a sales professor I had, and she was starting a new sales major. So her and a couple of students and I helped create a sales degree for Bloomsbury University. So now you can major in that. So while I was there, I competed in sales competitions, and I always knew I wanted to be in sales. My mom is a businesswoman. I always was like, I'm never going to be like her. Then now I am. I'm on the phone all the time and I'm just like my mother. So I pursued a sales career, and right out of college, I started in office equipment sales. So it was pretty door to door to offices, pitching them the sales. And it was very interesting. It was a hard job, I will say, like day in and day out. I was working from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, just like putting in info. It was a very long job. And yeah, kind of glad the pandemic pushed me out of that. So
Well, I would think that selling real estate is probably a tad bit easier than selling office equipment.
yeah.
Just and this is really kind of going door to door, right? I
Mhm.
mean, this is kind of in your face sales techniques.
Yeah.
You probably have to do a quick close with that. There's probably scripting that you had to memorize and do. I'm sure that was not easy. So your segue now goes into real estate. And like
Mhm.
we talked about, you're starting during the pandemic. So how was that learning curve for you? And kind of what did you expect coming in and kind of with everything that was going on, how did you manage all that?
Yeah, it was a little hard at first. I luckily was able to do a lot of things over Zoom. So I was pretty used to that with college. Like we were always hopping on Zooms and the things that was involved in, like the meetings were usually over Zoom. So it was a really easy learning curve for me to like kind of push my clients in that direction. And I honestly think because of COVID, these changes are really good for our industry, like meeting over Zoom. Like in the past, you'd bring them into your office, which I still think is great. I still do that for some of my clients, but it definitely helps them get on the phone a lot quicker because of people's schedules. They have kids, and to know that they're just into an hour time block and not having to travel, I think that definitely helped our industry a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the good things that came, I always talk about this, but the good
Yeah.
things that came out of the pandemic were transformational, right? Like,
Mhm.
being able to do the Zooms, the virtual meetings, your first meeting with a client usually now is over Zoom rather than in the office. And I find that's good not only for convenience sake, but potentially over safety's sake too.
Mhm.
You get a feel for these people. You're not in a room with them or isolated at a property with them. So
Yeah.
it really was a game changer. And so, during the lockdowns, not many people were coming into the office. You're not getting that face to face time with other agents and learning the business that way through osmosis. So, how did your background in your marketing and sales help you get through the early stages of your career, or was it completely different?
Yeah. So I segued into, watching a lot of Instagram videos. So there's a couple of people that I follow that I like love their marketing and how they do their business, but also talking to agents, like getting them on the phone, seeing what they do and how they're successful and picking things that I like to do. Like there were certain things that I was like, oh, that's not me. So I was able to pick and choose what worked for me, and it's definitely helped my business. Like social media and mailers are something that I picked up from other agents, and I've really seen a lot of success with those.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because I was checking out your Instagram profile
Mhm.
and you do great work. And so we're going
Thank
to
you.
touch upon that as well. So I want to shift to today's market. And you've become a successful realtor in your own right pretty quickly. You've been in the business 4 years,
Mhm.
and there's been a ton of challenges within that 4 years that we just spoke of. What do you think has propelled you to relatively quick success in your own real estate career?
Yeah. I think a lot of people will get like bogged down with all the noise. And I think just like staying focused on like what your end goal is so important. Like when I first started with COVID, they were like, the rates are, there's bidding wars and all like so much stuff was in the media and people were coming to me constantly. But just like, keeping a really good focus on like your end goal, I think is so important.
Mindset is always important, but especially
Mhm.
through the past several years, is that you hear a lot of negativity out there, and really just keep doing what you do, right?
Yeah.
Keep a positive mindset, keep flooding that zone with your marketing, saturate the market with you, right? And it's going to lead to good things. People still have to move, people still have to
Yeah.
buy no matter what. So so let's touch upon your social media
Mhm.
because I've seen your Instagram profile is amazing and your videos and reels are really good. You have some really creative content on there, which, I
Thank
was
you.
getting a kick out of. So it looks like Instagram is your go-to place when you're marketing on social media. So number one, is that true? And number two, if so, is that on purpose? Why is it that you're choosing Instagram to be your go-to social media site?
Yeah, I just love Instagram. I think it really touches with the consumer. So I'm able to put a story up and say, who's looking to buy in 2024? And someone just clicks yes. I immediately have a new lead. And it's not that I have to be salesy. They're reaching out to me. They're saying yes for a reason. They want to work with me. So I'm able to send them a message immediately. But I also think Instagram is pushing out more reels. So I've adjusted to that and I'm pushing out more videos, trying to stay, funny and, informational at the same time. So I think mixing it up helps. But a lot of people, I'm getting a lot of success with Instagram, and that's where I would say 80% of my business right now.
Wow. So I was going to ask that question. So you got
Yeah.
to be doing something right if 80% of your business is coming from Instagram. I think that's amazing. So you said you studied people. So do
Mhm.
you think that that is a byproduct of seeing who's out there and stealing some of the creative ideas from different profiles,
Yeah.
and adapting that to your own profile? Or are you coming up with this content yourself and it's kind of just organic? Or is it a mix of both? Like how are you
Yeah.
going about doing this, and how often do you post, say, a reel or a story? Do you try and do it every day, or do you kind of do every other day? Do you pick certain times? Like how do you go about that to maximize what you're doing on Instagram?
Yeah. I try to post stories, I would say like 3 to 4 times a week, just so I'm staying relevant. Reels, I would say once every 2 weeks, I'll post a reel, just so I don't, bore people. But, I want to make sure that it's, actually something good that I'm pushing out. I'm very specific with what I put on my Instagram. But yeah, I think that's definitely helped me.
So do you try and market to other social media outlets? Like, do you still do a Facebook, YouTube? Like, do you try and push your content out other places, or are you primarily just like, let's do Instagram and let's stick with it?
The good thing about Instagram is it allows you connect your Facebook to it. So when I post on Instagram, it just automatically posts on Facebook, which is like awesome for me. So it's like one less step. So, it just so happens that I post on Facebook, but Instagram is really my key thing right now.
What would you say? Who's your target market? Like, what's your demographic? You're on the younger side,
Mhm.
especially for a realtor. So, do you get a lot of first time home buyers? Like, who are the eyeballs that you are trying to reach when you're marketing?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of first time home buyers and also getting a lot of new construction.
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. No, I know your dad's a builder or
Yeah.
was a builder. Or I I know he doesn't have his real estate license
I
anymore.
know he does
Yeah.
not. But yeah, so he's a builder. So I think that's why I want to be moving into new construction too and making that my sales because I've just always looked up to him and he really loves his job and I love the aspect of building. I eventually want to do that one day. So that's kind of why I'm pushing in that direction as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great zone to get into. A lot of agents don't know the ins and outs of a build.
Mhm.
So having that knowledge will definitely kind of bump you up in the scale of people looking in that direction. The more you know, the more you know, right? So, do you find that, beyond social media, you would mention mailers? Do you do a lot of farming? Do you try and mix up different avenues of your marketing? Like what else are you working on besides social media?
Yeah, so I push about, I would say 6 to 8 mailers out a year. So in January, I sit down and I plan out what I want to do. So this month, I just sent out Philly schedules. And how I add to that is I want people to post it on social media so that they're seeing my name. They're not just getting my mailer and they're pushing it out to all their friends. So what I do is I usually have a contest attached with my mailers. So I'll say post it on social media for a chance to win 2 Phillies tickets. So they're posting that out there, and then their followers have an opportunity to now enter the contest as well on my social media. They don't just have to have my mailer. So it's pushing it out to a whole new group of people. And I usually get, I would say each mailer 1 to 2 new leads from that.
That's amazing. I mean, it
Yeah.
seems like your ROI on what you're doing is really solid. So you have some
Yeah.
really good ideas. And again, I think the masses out there probably what, like maybe 75% of us send out calendars of some kind, like the Phillies
Hmm.
calendars, the Eagles schedules. But you're tying that to a giveaway, which is a brilliant idea, Phillies giveaway, right?
Hmm.
I think going that extra step is gaining you business. And so it's well worth the time and investment that you're putting in.
Yeah.
And I think, the creative side of things, so much of marketing is just creativity. And it seems like you're really good at that. Just in the brief time that we've known each other, I can see that you're very serious about what you do. You said that you actually have a marketing plan, which I'm always amazed when someone that is newer to the business has a marketing plan. That means to me that they know their stuff, because it took me years to kind of be out of my own head and actually write my ideas down, right?
Yeah.
And be organized and be serious about it. And it takes time sometimes to cultivate that. So you're already a leg up on pretty much everybody else in our business at this
Thank
point.
you.
All right. So, like I said, we had a chance to meet each other recently. And we were talking about some things that are happening in the industry.
Hmm.
Obviously, everybody has heard about the lawsuits by now. And if you haven't, you've probably been living under a rock at this
Yeah.
point. If you're a
Yeah.
realtor, we're not going to get into the legality of everything, okay? But I do want to say there is going to be a time of flux that is going to be happening in our industry. And how we tackle that and with our mindset is kind of what I want to focus on with you. And so we've seen some crazy up and downs in the market over the past 4 years, historic lows and then spikes in interest rates. And now we see what has been going on with these lawsuits on a national level and also on a local level. And so the inevitable change is coming to our industry. So what does that mean to your mindset as a
Hmm.
newer agent, right? So you get in the business, all of a sudden, all this stuff is thrown at you, one thing after another. So
Yeah.
what does it mean to your own mindset? And then are you personally going to change anything in the way that you're going to be running your business, knowing what you know now?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So I, if you hear the saying, I wish I knew what I know now. So back when I started during COVID, everyone was like, you're joining during COVID, like trying to get into my head. And, everything winds up working out. So I think there's a lot with, a lot of people want to talk about real estate. Whenever I'm out, it just, happens. People are asking me about real estate. So I think the media likes to talk about real estate as well. And I think that's why it gets to where it is with, the information that's spread. So I really think that put your blinders on and just business as usual. And that's how I'm looking at it.
I totally agree with you. I do want to touch upon you had mentioned you work with a lot of first time home buyers.
Yeah.
And I do think the consequence of what's going on, this is my personal opinion. All right. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think if there is a place where it could hurt a certain consumer, it is going to be those that either are first time home buyers or low income buyers, because they do not have a lot of liquid cash to be spreading around, right?
Yeah.
Most of their, if not all of their cash is going towards a down payment, and that can be limited. And so working with buyers moving forward, I think is going to be more competitive.
Hmm.
And I also think that we have to do a better job as agents, because, we go out on listing appointments, but we may now have buyer appointments, right? Where we're interviewed by a buyer. And what are you going to do for me that's going to differentiate you from another agent out there? And
Yeah.
so what challenges or skills do you think you're personally going to need to implement to your own business to thrive, as well as evolve in the business with buyers in particular?
Yeah. I think getting that buyer agency agreement signed is number one. I think that's something that was always on the back burner for agents. So making sure we're having that signed. But if you read the buyer agency agreement, I think it's a really good opportunity to get to know your buyer walking through it, because it says like the duration of the agency agreement. So I think this is a good conversation to start having. So what's your timeline like? So if they're saying September, okay, let's have it till October. Just see how like fast they want to move. And I think it gives you a good sense for what kind of buyer you're going to be working with. Am I going to be out with them every weekend? Or is this something that, they're going to send me properties every other month? So I think it's really important to go through that buyer agency agreement with them And hopefully every agent does that moving forward, so that it's not like, oh, well, this agent isn't making me sign a buyer agency agreement. So I think if everyone's on board, it'll be really good for our industry. So it's not like, oh, this agent isn't making me sign anything, so I'm going with them, type of thing.
See, I agree. And I think, it's important to look at it like there is opportunity out there. Yes,
Hmm.
there's going to be changes, but with changes come opportunity. It's not all gloom and doom. And one
Yeah.
of the things that is a byproduct, a positive byproduct, in my opinion, is signing that agency contract before you start working with somebody, right?
Yeah.
Because so many of us were supposed to do that, but
Hmm.
so many of us do not do that. And so even if it's for the duration of one day, right? You're going to see
Yep.
three houses, you sign an agency contract for one day. At least you are protected as an agent and you have the conversation either, what's in that buyer agency contract. So you're getting to know them, you're
Hmm.
solidifying that relationship, and you're showing that you are a true professional. So I think that is really, really important. Also, we go beyond talking about a buyer consultation. Some agents do buyer consultations now. I know I do. I have my process.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do. Do you have a buyer consultation process that you do currently?
I do. Mine's very in depth. I say that mine usually goes from an hour to an hour and a half. I go over everything. And I think that sets Berkshire Hathaway apart from other agents because I think that's just like normal that we do that. So I think it's really showing your value during this time because buyers are going to want to pay for someone who's actually showing them the value, that's bringing the value because you need to, if you're asking for X amount to represent them, they're going to want to see that you're going to be working for them.
Yeah, and I totally 100% agree that if you're not showing your value now on the buyer side, you may be easily bypassed over, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to be out there and they're going to, we talked about a couple of these things in our meeting that you and I were in
Hmm.
was, how can you go beyond? Now, some of these some of
Yeah.
the agents kind of scoffed at my ideas in this meeting. All right, but let's I'm going to throw this out there. All right.
Yeah.
You start working with buyers, you have the opportunity now. It does say in our agency contract, certain things regarding commissions and all that. Like, I'm not going to get into that. All right.
Hmm.
But you could say, if you work with me, I have a long list of vendors that work behind me. Right. So if you buy a property, you need somebody, I can give you my vendor list, right? So that's one opportunity there to provide value. Another opportunity to provide value would be, well, you know what? If you work with me, maybe I'll buy you a home warranty, right?
Hmm.
At the time of settlement.
Yeah.
It may become a marketing tool, just like on the listing side. You potentially
Exactly.
promise staging, you could promise professional photography. You can also do the same thing on the buying side if you
Yeah.
want to differentiate yourself. So I can see, like I said, I can see appointments almost becoming like listing appointments with buyers. So, is there something that you want to work on outside of the buyer side? Let's just say as a whole with the changes that are coming. Is there anything else that you want to focus on moving forward that you think is going to be a good opportunity for you in the new environment that we may be in?
Yeah. Do you mean in regards to buyers or sellers?
Either one. Yeah, just
Either. Yeah.
overall.
I think, pushing out more information about what is out there to help them because I think there's a lot of false claims going around. Like I had a seller call me and say, "Oh, I saw the new law that was passed." And so I think it's pushing out information and being a resource to people to go to say, okay, Brittany's saying this, she's in the industry, so she probably knows what she's talking about. So I think that's something that I really want to focus on more is pushing out good information to my clients so that they can call me or know that if they see anything that they can reach out and get some clarification on it.
And again, we talk about opportunity. I think it's not a time to hide from what's going on, right?
Hmm.
It's getting in front of it and talking to your client. Because I know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you listening out there have been approached by clients already about it. I've already had several conversations about the lawsuits, in my opinion, disinformation that's out there,
Yeah.
or the lack of fact when
Exactly.
people talk about things, it drives me insane. And I'm sure it drives a lot of you listening out there insane as well. So let's be, like you said, let's be a resource for our people, get ahead of these things and have these conversations, because when they do speak to a realtor who knows what they're talking about, I do feel like you do alleviate any kind of misunderstanding out there. Right.
Yeah.
And they understand from our position that we have to make a living too. Right.
Mhm.
And so having a very frank conversation about these things and not being afraid to do so, I think is the way to go.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Definitely agree.
So, all right. So I know I want to touch upon this before we go, is that you're also involved in the Young Professionals Network,
Yeah.
YPN, right? So what is the advantage for someone that's younger or newer to the business? Maybe you're not so newer to the business. I don't know. But what is the advantage of going to a YPN event, and why is this important to you personally?
Yeah. So I think it's so important to join anything within Berkshire Hathaway. One of the reasons, of the many reasons I've joined Berkshire Hathaway, was because I love that we all network with each other. No matter what office you're in, everyone's communicating. And I think it's really a good resource for you to see any upcoming listings, to talk to other agents that are in our business. So I think it's so important to join Young Professional Network to be able to learn, grow. And, the next event is a professional headshot day. And really grow your business, learn about new construction. We have a lot of really good and fun stuff coming up.
Well, I do like the professional headshot day, because
Yeah.
I would say probably 90% of you out there need a new headshot, because I don't want to see a photo from like 50 years ago and you're like looking at the agent. You all know who you are out there. So feel
Yep.
free, feel free to take advantage of that. And you said the importance of networking. And I think that you've weathered the storm now, and now we're typically together again, right? And there's more people flooding back into the offices, going
Yeah.
to these events. And so I do think that there's the opportunity to, as agents, I think a lot of us get into our own spheres, right? We maybe don't network as much as we should. I think maybe that may be a byproduct or leftover byproduct of the pandemic and people being away from each other. But I like the fact that you're like, we have the opportunity to network office to office. And I agree with you. That's one thing that I love about what we can do. And even networking with you, right? Like I met you for the first time last week. I had heard your name before, but I was privileged to be able to meet you at kind of a semi networking event, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward, are you thinking about potentially starting a team? Do you feel like you're best suited as an individual agent? You seem to me the kind of person that may be a team leader in the near future. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair. I definitely want to grow a little bit more. I think I'm always learning. So I think down the road would definitely be something I would like to do. But for now, just an individual agent. But I
I
think I have a lot to bring to the table, and I can really teach someone. Just, my first month at Berkshire Hathaway, I learned more here than I did a year at another company. And just so many resources that I can teach people to use that are coming from different companies. I think that's a really good resource that I could offer as well.
And I'm not trying to force you to be a team leader, by the way. Just want to make sure you understand that.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to throw that on your pile there.
that's fine.
But no, you do seem very serious about your business.
Mhm.
You do seem very organized. And I can tell right away that, what makes you successful, right? Just in talking to you in this podcast. All right. Before we get out of here, I got one more question for you. All right.
That's good.
So last question. What kind of office equipment did you sell? Number one. And number two, is it possible that you can get your hands on an office chair with massaging capabilities for me? Can you pull some strings to make that happen at this point in your life?
I didn't sell those, but I'm sure, somewhere one of the outlets have them. But I sold copiers and like those professional, like the touchscreen TVs at one point. So maybe I can get you a discount on a printer or something.
So I don't know if you watched the show The Office, but
No, it was literally The Office.
so
Yeah.
you were like the saber, sales consultant selling printers out there.
Yep, exactly.
God, that sounds like the hardest job on the face of the earth. By the way,
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
you did
Wasn't my
say
best choice.
I remember you telling me that you did want to go into medical sales eventually.
Yeah.
That did not happen. Was that the Pittsburgh job?
It actually wasn't.
Well, I will say Pittsburgh's a cool town. So, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're with us and you're here. And
Yes.
and it was very nice meeting you. It was very nice talking to you today. I really appreciate your time in doing this. I know that you are busy running around these days. So thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us on the podcast.
Of course.
Follow her on Instagram. Check her out on Facebook. She does great stuff. And Britny, hopefully I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. You too.
That was my conversation with Britny Keyes this week. Here are a few takeaways that I had in talking with Britny. Number one, the first thing that strikes me about Britny and her rise and success in the real estate world is that she had to have the right mindset coming into the real estate industry at a very difficult time. And to make it through the first 4 years of your career being in a pandemic to start, and then the rise and fall of interest rates, the crazy market that we've been in, and being able to succeed to the point where she was President's Circle for 2023 speaks to me about keeping a very positive mindset, having that tenacity to make it through the peaks and valleys of the start of your career to get to a better place. So for the new agents out there that are listening, or even if you're experienced and you're struggling in your business right now, keep your mindset positive. Focus on the things that you can control, stay consistent, and good things are going to happen. I think Britny is a testament to that. Number two, Britny does a very good job of driving business to her through social media with the use of some creative tools. So something as simple as putting a story out there on Instagram, who is ready to buy a home this year, yes or no? That is just a simple question, but it is a great way to get leads, and it's something that you can do today that's super easy, and maybe that's going to increase your business. Or Britny talked about the idea of sending out Phillies calendars, which, a lot of us do, or sports calendars of some kind. But she takes that added step of tying that to a giveaway for 2 Phillies tickets or 2 sporting event tickets, depending on what calendar that you're sending out, that drives people to her Instagram profile, gains her more followers, and possibly gains her more business. It's a creative and smart way to capitalize on not just doing the calendars, but taking that extra step to ensure that she gets some business from it. Those are the kind of differentiators between her and other agents that's allowing her to succeed where others may fail and not get anything from that mailer. So my point is, get creative and do a little bit more than the bare minimum of what other agents are doing out there. It's not just about keeping up with your colleagues and what they're doing. It's about working smarter and getting you more business. Lastly, we talked about some of the changes that are going to be coming to our industry, and I know a lot of you are anxious out there. We don't know what to expect. We're hearing this, we're hearing that. The media likes to talk about the chaos in our industry, but you know what? Even if there is chaos, chaos brings opportunity. And it is not all gloom and doom. It is not something that we need to look upon as being negative. Change is inevitable. It always happens in our industry. Look for opportunities that you can take advantage of in your business. Make some changes that maybe you've been meaning to make for a while in the way that you do a buyer presentation, right? Think about different opportunities out there that with the changes in the market are going to present something that you can do differently to enhance your business. So keep a positive mindset out there and take advantage of the changes that are going to be heading our way. Well, that's it for this week's episode. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to our podcast yet or left us a review, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.